right, welcome everybody. Today we have a very special guest. This is our ACM speaker series. Today we have Ruben Carrillo, who is a awesome production person, but more importantly, he's a producer, a director of photography in the film and television industry here in Hawaii. He has 4 Emmy Awards and I believe 4 Nahoku Awards. He's worked on numerous films, television shows like Hawaii Five-0, Magnum P.I, Rescue High Surf. So he has a lot of knowledge to impart to you guys. Hopefully he can share his experience in industry. He's an awesome person, and I'll have you come up.
Yeah, I guess I'll start with a little bit of backstory on myself. I was born in Mexico, but my parents are both American. So we moved up to the U.S., California, when I was like 6 to 8 months old. And my dad was an art professor. And so I grew up around him, and he was always painting 24/7. Every time he was home, he was just in his studio painting. So I got a lot of exposure to that imagery and light and color. And I guess it kind of, I don't really have the hand-to-eye coordination for painting, but I guess I took that and I brought it into my work as a cinematographer. In the mid-'80s, I had a class in high school that introduced me to television production. And so my second year of college, I got a job for NBC in San Luis Obispo in California, shooting news. And that's kind of what I started doing. I thought that I was going to do news for the rest of my life. I loved it. It was exciting and exhilarating. And I moved up to San Francisco, and I went to school at San Francisco State. My 2 roommates were film majors, and I was like a broadcasting major. And I kind of found that really, the stuff that they were doing was more interesting, and I ended up shooting a lot of the stuff that they were doing for their projects. So when I left school early, and I left school early and I went and worked for Univision Network, which was a news station in San Francisco. And I was there about a year, and then I got promoted to West Coast Bureau for the Univision Network out of Los Angeles. My first job there was the O.J. Simpson trial, murder trial. So I was there the day after it happened and was at his house that day. So I covered a lot of news in LA and entertainment. Did the Los Angeles earthquake. That was my first Emmy, actually. It was the Los Angeles earthquake. And then I moved to Hawaii in 96. January of 96. And I started my own production company when I moved here. And I also was trying to find freelance work in news, and I started doing some freelance work for KGMB. And eventually, my production company took up all my time, and I did it full time. And I started doing a lot of local commercials, a lot of local television shows. And whenever shows from the mainland came in here, different things, television-based, like Entertainment Tonight and E! Entertainment. And I did a lot of stuff around the world for E! Entertainment, this show called Wild On, in a bunch of places around the world. And eventually, I was shooting on some film sets, like a lot of behind the scenes for them, Lost, and a couple other things. And I kind of realized that that's really the path that I wanted to go down. So I switched gears and joined the union, and started doing, the first job I did was Hawaii Five-0. I did season 2 through 10 as a day player. So I still had my production company, but every time they needed extra operators, I would come in and film with them. And then Magnum P.I, and I did the same thing with them. And then I started realizing that if I was gonna improve myself and also become, if I was gonna be capable of getting a higher position in the film industry, I'd have to go in full time. Because if you're just jumping in and out a couple days a week, you're kind of like the last camera, you know. They have their own staff cameras, and then they bring you in and you're this other camera. And I wanted to kind of like jump up and start getting a higher camera. So I joined Magnum P.I full time for its final season. And then after that, I did the Rescue High Surf. So Rescue High Surf was the last show that I did, and I was the A camera operator on Rescue High Surf for the season. I think it was about 8 months. And then in between all that, throughout the whole thing, I did a bunch of film work. When shows like Kong versus Godzilla was here, I was one of the operators. Aquaman 2, Sonic 2, and different things like that. What I specialize in is as a cinematographer or a camera operator. Two different things. Cinematographer is a director of photography, and camera operator shoots for the cinematographer. But I also, having my own production company and being in Hawaii, I felt like I needed this to be very diverse, at least back in the day. So I also edit, direct, produce. I don't write. And I used to own a studio, and I used to own a truck. We did all the OC16 live events, football games and basketball games and volleyball games and all that stuff. We do about 180 games a year. Not anymore. It was very stressful and was a lot of pressure on me. So now I just operate out of my home. I still have a production company. I still do commercials. I have a lot of equipment. I have a lot of lights. I have a lot of cameras. I still do television series when they're here. Right now, we don't have any series. I'm sure you guys have all heard. We have no series. We have no films being shot here. We don't know when that's going to change. The legislature didn't pass any new incentives, and the world has changed. The world of filmmaking has changed. Before, everything was made out of Los Angeles, and there'd be places like Hawaii and trying to think of the other places. Canada got a lot, and a few of the other states got a lot, Georgia, Atlanta. But I think now with the changing landscape of that, we had COVID, then we had the strikes. We had strikes for quite a while, and I think the industry realized that it didn't necessarily need us in the people that are established in the unions in the U.S., and they started taking a lot of the work outside of the U.S. So places like New Zealand and Marvel now built a studio in England, and Canada gets a lot of work. So it's starting to diversify and be spread out across the world more. And things are happening and things are changing. Los Angeles passing some laws, and they're trying to bring industry back into Los Angeles, and it looks like that's going to happen. The industry is still here. We're still working. But that's my background, and that's kind of the basis of thing. I like I said before, I kind of consider myself a camera operator and a cinematographer. I do other things, but that's really, if somebody asks me what I am, that's what I am. Well, let me start with on set, just the different positions for a set. So some of this, every set's different, and it depends on what you're doing. Commercials are different from episodics, and episodics are different from feature films. But so we just did the Rescue High Surf, and just to give you a sense of that, like we probably had somewhere between 150 and 200 people on set every day that were crew members, and then you'd have background actors and all that. People like the director, the assistant director. Assistant director is they're kind of like running the set, making sure they're responsible for everything that happens that day as far as safety goes, as far as being on time, keeping a schedule, making sure that the director gets everything that they need in that day. They're kind of like the coach of the day. Then you have audio. There's an audio department, which is usually a department of 3 people, sometimes more, but there's a main audio person who's called an A1. You have an A2, which is the boom operator, which is the guy that holds the big boom. And then you have the A3, which is usually an assistant that runs around and helps out and pulls cable and helps people get mic'd up and things like that. There's set deck, which is the people that decorate this, that handle all the set and making sure everything's in its place and everything's there. There's props that are like, if there's props as a person that, say there's a gun in a shot or somebody's eating a sandwich or that's all props, and they're responsible for the prop people. Hair, makeup, wardrobe. These are all different positions that anybody in the industry can get into, and if it's something you're interested in, it's kind of individual departments. And in Hawaii, most of them fall under one union. It's IATSE 665. Grips, lighting people are in the same union. And then camera. So camera is in a different union. Camera's in a union called IATSE 600, which is an international union, and we can work anywhere in the world underneath that union. Whereas IATSE 665 is only in Hawaii. So camera department is kind of basically, you have the director of photography, which is the boss. Every department has a boss. It's kind of like built like the military a little bit, structured like the military. So like the first AD, which is assistant director, has a second AD underneath him, has a second AD, and then a bunch of PAs that all fall underneath his department. The director of photography is our boss. Then you have a camera operator, which is what I did on Rescue. Then you have first AC, which is my assistant that is pulling focus for me. Then you have a second AC, which is assisting him, carrying stuff, and he's the one that usually claps the slate. And then there's other people in our department that aren't, but that's like, my team would be 3 people plus a grip that is usually with me, that safeties me, and also is there to like lay track for me if I have dolly. But a lot of it, like for Rescue I Serve, we didn't have any dolly, but it's a lot of safety stuff. So he's there to make sure that I'm safe. I don't fall off of something or get hit by something or run into something. And it can happen. There's a lot of stuff that goes on film sets. So I might as well, and if anybody has any questions about anything, please feel free to ask. I don't know what you all are interested in, what part of the industry you're interested in, and if I can answer anything about what you are interested in, I would be happy to. Let me just, I have a few things. I brought a couple clips. I have to apologize because I don't have anything from any of the big feature work that I do or any of the episodic stuff. I do have a bunch of local stuff that I've done, and I can show it to you. So just to give you a sense of some stuff. So this is, I had a client that contacted us. This is back in 2020, just prior to 2020, so it's 2019. And it was, the US Census was happening in 2020, and they needed to count everybody in the country. And one group that they wanted to make sure that they were getting counted was Pacific Islanders and Polynesians and Hawaiians. They were grouping them all into this one category. And so they wanted to get it out there that, you know, the 2020 census was happening. Please make sure that you're counted, just so that we know how many. That's how they kind of like figure out where the dollars go from the national budget, federal budget. So they tasked us. I had been doing a lot of music videos, kind of these ones that are, we record live on location. So the audio, the music, everything's being recorded out on location, as opposed to like a kind of a normal music video. You'd take a pre-recorded song and everybody would lip sync to it. We actually record it on location wherever we're at, and then we edit the song together. So this is one. So what we did was we looked for different Pacific Islander, Hawaiian, and Polynesian acts across the country, and we shot in New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Hawaii, and this is the one thing that we came up with. So I kind of mentioned I wear a lot of hats. So on that project, I co-produced it. I have a producing partner that we do it, most of my stuff with. I directed it, I DP'd it, I shot it, and I edited it. So this is just kind of a compilation stuff, and it's a little old. It's from 2016. I haven't put anything together in a really long time. Just because since then I've been focusing on a lot of the episodic and feature work. So I will show you guys just kind of a compilation stuff. So that's just a compilation. Does anybody have any questions? I should have asked that before this, because about the last piece, the "This Is Me" or any of that stuff. Does anybody have questions?
So at what point did you start, so you did the freelancer work, shooting more new stuff
Yeah.
out in LA. At what point did you start doing more kind of like commercial work in Hawaii?
I moved here in '96, and it took me a little while because it's a while ago, so it's hard for me to remember exactly, but probably took me a couple of years. So I started when I got here doing freelance stuff for KGMB, and as I was doing that, I started to start my own company up. But it was a little bit hard because I didn't know anybody here, and it took me a little while to do that. But I got it going, and by about 2000, I had a studio with a 7,500 square foot studio and a truck and editing bays and employees. It was a lot of pressure, though, I found, and it was hard. And once I got out of that situation, I was much happier. Just working by myself, and I still do the same type of work. I have a lot of equipment. I have a lot of multi-camera equipment. I have a lot of film equipment. I am also a Steadicam operator. I have a full-blown Steadicam system. I just do it on my own time and hire crew as needed instead of having people on staff. So when I do a job, I have a group of people that I work with, and a lot of them are LCC students that I used to have as interns. And there's a few people that have been with me since 2010, 2011. There's a group of people that are still working with me today, and they're still the first calls that I make when I do jobs. What was your question?
So you said you recorded that was like on the day you recorded their audio.
Mm-hmm.
So
like logistically, like is that like you just ran through the whole song with like each singer, or like was that like
So I think I understand the question. You're asking me about that I mentioned that I was recording audio on the music video. We were recording audio on location on the day, and whether we went through the whole song or how do we do that. So it kind of depends, and this is where it comes in. My director side comes in and tries to figure stuff out because we have a lot to accomplish in a day. Some of those locations were kind of crazy. I don't know that we had Grand Central Station at 4 o'clock in the morning closed for us, and we shot the whole thing in there. I can't remember how much time, but we had a very limited amount of time to do that. We also went to the Statue of Liberty before anybody else got to go to the Statue of Liberty and shot there. So sometimes you'll play the song all the way through, but if it's like that was a long song. I forgot how long it was, but that was like 8 minutes, I think. So if you're playing the song through 8 minutes, that's 8 minutes per take. That's a lot of time. So you kind of got to like figure out ahead of time where everybody's parts are, where you're going to use them. Sometimes you're bringing people in later on, so you kind of think about that. If you have to shoot them all the way through, absolutely, then you do it. But you're doing a lot of takes. I'm shooting everything one camera. It's just easier for me so that I see. I've tried this style with 2 cameras before, but for me as the director and I'm shooting, I can't watch the other camera, and I find that I get more of what I want when it's just one camera. And I get all these different angles. So you got to go through and hopefully you find that 15-second part or 20-second part and you shoot all these different angles. And sometimes I don't know if you've noticed also at the beginning of the piece, we actually brought a piano out to the middle of the sandbar out in Hawaii. That was pretty crazy. But we had the permits for it. We do everything, properly. We have the permits for it. But we did arrive at like 3:30 in the morning, and I had sent we had piano movers, and I had sent them a map with an X, and this is where we want it, and explained everything to them. And at 3:30 in the morning, they showed up with 2 guys. Pianos are really heavy, and the guys like, "Oh yeah, we can't do it over there." And I was just like, "No, but we have to," And so I nicely tried to explain it to him, and we ended up calling people at this point it's probably 4 o'clock in the morning, and we had like 2 or 3 more people show up, and the whole crew jumped in and carried this piano about 100 yards. So it's like you have to kind of come up with stuff and whatever. But so then I'm limited time because we're shooting at sunrise. I can't have her play all the way through the song for each part. So I think with her part goes through the whole song, but it's repetitive. So we are just getting parts of it that we know we can use throughout the whole song. And then I'm getting the angles and getting my shots that I need and making sure like I know exactly in my head what shots I have to have. And then, then there's some extra shots that maybe we can play with and it'll work in post that are bonus if there's time. And in that case, our last take, the piano sunk. So we ended up just getting what we needed. I had thought ahead and I made these little 1 by 1 foot pieces of plywood to go under each foot, but the tide had started coming in enough that the whole piano just went like this. So the last minute. Yes.
I don't know this because you partly already answered this question. I had this question before, but you already mentioned that the scene, I think the first or second video, the Grand Central. So that's, you answered that they closed actually, because I was wondering how it's empty. So now my question, how did you close it? How it's happened? How they allowed you to close this?
Well, I have a really good partner that Robert knows from way back when, used to work with her, but she handles all the permits and all that kind of stuff, and so she dealt with it. But, it was basically a fee. We had to hire a couple of security officers, and there was a very specific time period that they close it every night, and it's like, I don't know, maybe 2 hours or something like that. And so we had to fit into that very specific time period. But it's amazing to get that opportunity, but that's part of it. It's like being in this business and being in that position where we're, okay, where are we going to shoot? And we figure out where we're going to shoot and, what cities we're going to shoot in. And then, it's just your mind, it's the opportunity to engage the creative side of your mind and figure things out. And where are we going to shoot in New York City? Well, we went and scouted, And so we came up with a few locations in the Statue of Liberty and Grand Central Station. So now, can you shoot in Grand Central Station? You know, and then my partner jumped in and worked on that, and yeah, you can. It just costs a little bit, and you know, there's just very specific things, and we had to go through like a bag check and everything, and for security reasons, and but we can, and we did it. It was, you know.
Liberty started. This is where the few people singing, right? That's on the stairs, right? This is the.
You talking about the Statue of Liberty?
Yeah, I never
Statue of
did.
Liberty. There's on the front side of it. There's a fenced-in area you can't go in, and the grass area, and we were there. That's where we were.
Oh, on the grass. Okay.
Yeah.
So I got mistaken then. The second shot, which is inside some other, it's not central, not Grand Central, but there are like 6 or 7 people singing.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that's San Francisco. Yeah. So I grew up in the Bay Area. I grew up in Santa Cruz, and I went to school at San Francisco State in San Francisco. So I know the area really well. And we ended up getting ourselves a children's choir, and I thought it would be awesome to put them inside the City Hall. And it's spectacular, you know, it looks so beautiful. And same thing, there's all these like restrictions and requirements and stuff like that, but it's amazing what you can do. They let us do it. We had the permits to do it, and, you know, we went and did it, and it was beautiful.
Ruben, can you speak to the preparation that goes into, for instance, like planning to go shoot at the train station, for instance? You know, because you have such limited time, you can't just go in there and wing it or do that kind of.
Right. And sometimes, and I'm going to say a little story, that sometimes plans have to change last second. So we loaded all our gear in the dark onto a boat to go out to the Statue of Liberty, and we get out there and we're setting up, and there's 2 cases that I have that look exactly alike. One of them's a Dana dolly and one of them's a light kit. And we get out there, and I'm going to set up the Dana doll, and I open up the case, and there's lights in it. And I don't need lights. And everything, I use the Dana dolly a lot for these things, and I threw a fit for about 4 minutes, you know, and it's more just to myself, you know, who do you get mad at, you know? Like, there was people grabbing gear, and it was dark, and we were trying to get stuff out, and I had to completely rearrange the way I was going to shoot that, because I already knew how I was going to shoot it, which makes it easier to get in there and just do this and do that and you do this. But now there's no movement, 0 movement. So I had to fully like let go of my plan and make up a new plan in front of clients and the musician and my crew, and you know, go forward with that. And so that's what we ended up with, and I thought it worked. I was like stuck in my head the way I wanted it, but I can't even remember the question. The question was, planning. So yeah, so there's a lot of planning. So for those particular shoots, you know, it's hard because we're traveling. So we had to figure out location. So Don and I, my producer and I, went and scouted each place, each city, and we drove around to look at different places and figure out kind of what we wanted. Depending upon the artist, we were thinking about the artist that we had in mind for that shot and what the part of the piece that it was going to be in, and what we wanted it to look like. Then we find these locations, and then Don makes calls to figure out if it's even possible to shoot at these locations, like who's responsible. Is it city? Is it state? Is it private? Once you find that out, then if it's city and state, there's permitting that you have to go through and you have to pay. It's not that much usually. And then if it's private, you have to find out who owns it. And generally you don't have to pay. It depends on if they're cool or not, and it depends on how big it is, a big facility. And so then we fill out the permits, make sure we have everything in time for that. And then you have to, make sure you have the crew, they're all available. You have to book flights, you got to book a hotel. You got to make sure the schedule's okay. You got to pay attention to weather and be concerned about weather, because if last minute it looks like the weather's going to be horrible, you have to make a call whether you're going to do it or not. On that note, I'm going to switch over to a music video I did for Hawaiian Airlines. So the music videos that are running on Hawaiian Airlines right now are mine. And one of them is Kaylee Reichel and Cody Pueopata. And there we filmed them. The song was written by Cody, and it was written about the West Maui mountain range. And so I wanted to have this epic West Maui mountain range behind them. And so we flew over to Maui and scouted, and I couldn't find it. Came home. We went over for another shoot and spent a day scouting, couldn't find it, went home. And I'm sitting on my computer at home, and I pull up Google Maps, and I find the spot that I want to shoot at. It's right there on Google Maps. I can see the roads going to it. It's in the top of the mountain range. It's some dirt road. So I go, okay, that's where I want to shoot. Now we just have to figure out how to get to that and how to get all the permits and all that stuff like that. So that process, we have to get the proper permits from the state. We have to get the proper permission from the private corporation that controlled the road 3/4 of the way up the mountain. And so we had to get permission from them. Then we had to get access through a gate. So we had to find the person that had the access to the key for the gate, and we paid them. We actually had them drive us up, and it was like 4 cars that drove up with all our gear and all the people. And then we had to have off-road vehicles because it was pretty hairy off-road road, and it brought us up right to the ridge line. And so we do all that. We fly the whole crew. We stay overnight in Maui. We get up at, 2 o'clock in the morning and all drive to the location in the dark and up to the top of the mountains on a dirt road that's pretty hairy, right along the cliffs. And we get there and we're rained out. It starts raining, and the view is spectacular, but not when there's clouds. So I had a choice, like, do we wait it out and see what happens? Plus, I just spent a ton of money flying everybody, hotels, crew, everything. Do I wait it out and see what happens? And if it clears up, but then if I also wait it out and the road gets too slick, are we gonna be able to get back? Because it is precarious. And so I pulled the plug, and we all drove back down the mountain, and I tried to very, very hard to figure out where else I could shoot it lower down. As soon as we got down to the bottom of the mountain, it was perfectly sunny. And I tried very hard to figure out where I could shoot it and how it would work. And nothing matched what I could have had. And so I just pulled it completely, and we left. And then a month later or 3 weeks later, we scheduled another date. And 2 days before that date, I pulled the plug because I was worried it was going to rain again. And then we scheduled another date. And this is getting crew and dancers. And in fact, we lost the dancers because the first time we had all the dancers up there, the last time when we finally said, okay, we're just going to do it, none of the dancers could make it. So we lost the dancers. But that video actually won another, what did it win? It won an Ohoku Hano Award. It ended up being the most spectacular. Oh, I wish I had that video, because I shot some behind the scenes of us driving up with Kaylee Reichel in the car. And the funny thing was for the older folk here, Kaylee Reichel put out an album where I can't remember the name of the album, but he's facing this valley. That's the location. So I randomly chose the exact same location to shoot him in 20-something years later. But anyway, that's kind of like permitting process, crew process, what you have to deal with from that side. Costs, dealing with it probably costs, I don't remember how much it cost me, but it may be $5,000 or $7,000 for the day that I lost.
Sorry, I know you're trying to move on, but just like a really quick question. So
Making executive decisions like pulling the plug on a project that you already spent so much time and energy on, whether it be like involving multiple people, cast, crew, dancers, wardrobe, that must suck. I mean, like, I guess the question I'm trying to ask is like, how do you manage that stress, and how do you stay positive? Because you're the director, and everything falls on you. Your decisions that you make, and whether it be pulling the plug or staying. Like, how do you stay positive, I guess?
It's a good question, valid question. I'm just remembering certain things. So like I had to buy lei for that day that we didn't shoot, and it was probably $400 or $500 worth of lei that we bought. How do you stay positive? I wasn't just the director. Like if I was just the director, I think it would have been easier. I was also the executive producer, so I'm financially responsible for everything, which makes it harder. I think part of this, and I this is a whole nother element to the business, but part of this business is it's not an easy business. People that work in it love it. We love it. I love what I do. Is it easy? Absolutely not. Is it stressful? Absolutely. You are expected to do your job. You're expected to be there. We always work hard. There's not, I don't know any other industry like I won't say who, but there's other family members in my household that come home after 8 hours in a day, and that's their long, hard day. And our days can be 14 or 16 hours sometimes. Days and days and days in a row. Months. So you have to have that kind of personality that clicks into that film. Film people are a specific, there's all different sides of this business, by the way, not just film and feature and episodic and that kind of stuff. There's also corporate and music videos and commercials, and everything's a little bit different. But you kind of have to have that personality where you're willing to work hard. You get along with other people because it's very, very much it's not a solo thing. There's not one person carrying the team. There may be this incredible director, but he needs incredible art directors and incredible set designs and incredible actors and incredible editors and incredible music. Like there's so much that goes into it. And so, as in that position, in that moment, I have to be able to handle stress. And I actually think a lot of it came from shooting news early on, because doing live things is very stressful. So we handle a lot of multitasking things and are able to kind of handle that stress. And you got to kind of take it in stride. You're also with a bunch of people, and so if you lose it, or you can't keep yourself together, there's a lot of people around, that are seeing that, and you have to maintain their respect, in order to get what you need done from everybody. You have to have their respect.
Hey, Ruben, that This Is Us video, that was just truly amazing. And, the question I have is like, because there's so many locations, and also a lot of celebrities, singing, like who sponsored that, that piece?
So that one, the U.S. government did for the census, but like a lot of projects, and this is just the way that me and my partner on a lot of my stuff is Don County LPO with 4 Miles LLC. And the way that we do things a lot of times is we want to make sure that it's done and it's done right. So sometimes the budget kind of goes a little bit out the window. I mean, it's not our primary concern. Profit is not our primary concern. So with that video, we wanted to do it the way you saw it, and it definitely exceeded the budget that we had. And so we went out and found other partners to help with that. Hawaiian Airlines donated the airfare, which was amazing and incredible of them. And we had a few other sponsors to help fill in for that kind of stuff, and that enabled us to pull that piece off. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Okay, you were talking about respect. I was just curious about your ideas on developing and maintaining respect.
I mean, there's different. I mean, I think the business before, and especially even before my time in the feature and episodic world, was a little bit different than it is now. But there are still there's a hierarchy, and people can have attitudes and be rude and all that kind of stuff and still kind of get away with it. But I believe in having people around you that support you. And in order to do that, you have to have you have to have their respect. It's like I mentioned before, it's really such this team effort. The last thing you want is a member of the team that's not 100%, right? And so if everybody respects each other and their abilities and is there for each other, I mean, when you go and do a 3-month movie or 8 months of an episodic, it's a family. You become a family, you know, and with everybody respecting each other, the product is that much better, and also the experience is that much better. That's why we're like, the Rescue High Surf really became my family for 8 months, and we're this close to not having it come back. And you know, in the next 2 weeks, we'll find out whether we have a second season. Anyway, did I answer it? Okay.
So it's going to be a little bit off topic, but in your 2016 reel, was some of those shots drone operated by any chance?
Helicopter.
Oh, helicopter.
Anything aerial in that piece was helicopter.
Oh,
yeah.
You folks sometimes hire separate drone operators, or have your DPs, or kind of like require them to have like at least like drone experience? Because I know nowadays a lot of people are getting more fancy with all the aerial shots.
Yeah.
I understand the pressure of, you know, praying to God that the weather isn't so bad that it blows everywhere, or the FAA doesn't get involved. But do you guys kind of like, you guys go based off of your creativity, or do you guys kind of listen to the client if they request that?
So it depends on what the job is. Like, you know, like we're talking about this huge range of things. Are we doing a wedding, or are we doing a feature film? Are we doing a music video? Or are we doing a episodic? So it just depends. On the higher end, there's a specific drone team that would come in to do it. On the commercial side, local commercial side, you know, a lot of the higher end local commercials, there's a specific drone team that comes in. But if it's just like a small, lower end commercial, whoever can fly the drone, if you have somebody that you trust and they're good, but they have to be licensed, and you got to get the permits. There's certain things you can be on private property. I think you don't need a permit, but again, that's what my partner handles, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we follow all the rules and regulations of the state and the county, so that, you know, we're following the permitting processes for everything. We're not running out there and grabbing stuff without permits. You want to stay on the good side, you know, even when you're just starting out, because you don't want to get in trouble, and then when you're 5 years or 10 years down the line, you have a problem, they don't want to give you a permit because they caught you doing something. So.
Oh, okay. Sorry that I've been hogging the microphone, but this is a little bit of a weird question, but how does pyrotechnics work when it comes to like filming and like getting permission?
Well, it's a good question. I don't deal with that, so I haven't used pyrotechnics for my own stuff, but I've been in, you know, we use pyrotechnics in Hawaii 5.0, Magnum P.I, and all the King Kong when I was on that, and there's a lot of it. I don't know what it is permitting-wise, what you have to do for it. There's a specific team that handles, the effects team that handles all that kind of stuff. That's another department. So there's a special effects department that does anything special effects related. If you need smoke, if you need fire, if you need explosions, if you need guns is handled by props, but there's a whole, you know, team for that. So you know, permitting wise, I can't speak on behalf of what you would need to do with permitting, but usually, you know, there's safety things that come with it. So you usually need to have somebody on set that can put fires out and that kind of stuff if you're doing that kind of thing.
So Ruben, we were talking prior to you coming in here and talking about how important communication is and being able to understand, for instance, what the director wants. Could you kind of talk about that?
So as a camera operator, and this is one of there are various paths to get into being on a film set or an episodic set. Episodic set is like Hawaii 5.0, Magnum P.I, any of those kind of shows, and then a film set is like feature films. But there's various paths to get in. I kind of did, and I've heard many stories, so there's different ways of doing it. A lot of times you go in as a PA and you work your way up. and sometimes the way I did it was going through news, and I was shooting a lot of stuff, and I had worked up a reel and got a DP, a ton of DP days, and so I was able to get into union. But because I didn't go through this film route where I started down at the bottom in the film world and worked my way up, I didn't know all the different protocols, and you know, there's a certain set flow of wave going through as an operator on set. So that took me a while, and one of the main things for me, and one of the lessons that I learned, was interpreting the director and the DP. So those are the two people that you're really listening to as a camera operator on a set, was the director and the DP. And sometimes it's just the director, and sometimes it's just the DP, and sometimes it's this compilation of them both, and you have to like be a little careful because the director tells you one thing and the DP tells you something exactly opposite. The director is technically the big boss, but you don't go and do something against the DP without telling the DP, because that's your boss. So like if a director said, shoot from this direction, I want this shot, and the DP had told you previously, don't ever shoot from that direction, I don't want to see that background, or the lighting's horrible, or something like that, then you'd go, okay, to the director, and then you'd walk over to the DP and you go, hey, the director wants me to do that, is that okay? And he'll make the decision, and he can talk to the director, or he can just say, God, go do it. The other thing is I would have a director come up to me and I would have him say, okay, you know, I want you to shoot right here, and I want you to, you know, get this shot right here. And so I might, at the very beginning, I might take my camera and I might set it up right here, and I'd try to do the shot. And it took me a while to realize that you know, you still you're an operator, and you still have to use your experience and knowledge and skill sets, and take what they're asking you to do and take your stuff and put them together. Because if I'm shooting right here and I can feel it, like it's not like there's a very specific, everybody has a different idea of what's really good and what's not, but there's very specific things like, is the shot here, or is the shot here, or is it here, or is it right here? I mean, it all makes a difference, and it all changes the thing, and it can mean the difference between a really good shot, or you could be even blocked by another actor or something like that. So you have to, the director told me right here, but really when I figured it out, maybe it's right here, you know, and he put his hand here, but maybe it was down here. So I'll do all these different things, and and it takes you a while because you have to have the confidence to be able to, okay, I know the director wants this, but you know, I think it's this, and so you know, and also you also have to be really careful that you don't let your mind go take you somewhere that the director's going to turn around and go, I told you what to do, what the hell are you doing? So, you know, so you have to get an understanding of your director, you have to get an understanding of your DP, you have to know the kinds of shots, like there's certain things that some of them go, oh my God, I hate that every time, I don't ever want to see that. And you have to lock that in your brain. This director or this DP doesn't ever want to see that, but they really like this. So when you're on a set, then you start implementing that into your styles and try to give them, you know, these great shots that are accomplishing what they want, but they're also what you know really works. But that took me a long time actually to do, and I still have. I was shooting a commercial for Bank of Hawaii, Steadicam shot for Bank of Hawaii a couple months back. And the director's like, I want this. And so I'm just like, okay, I'm like, and it was kind of hectic and crazy. And so I'm just like shooting it. And then I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, this is horrible. Like, I knew it was horrible, and I'm still shooting it. And then I was just like, okay. And I just took a second, and I'm like, wait a second. And I just reset myself. And I looked, there was a guy that, as a director, he was on set, but he's a director, wasn't directing this one, but, and I could tell that he saw what was happening in my head, because he knew, he'd seen my work, and he knew that I could shoot. And so he saw the whole thing, and I could see that we like made eye contact, and I could see he understood what was going on. And so I kind of reset myself, and I did what I thought was good and still accomplishing his thing, and that's really what worked. So.
Ruben, we've been really fortunate. You know, you've hired so many of our previous graduates from like Jordan's time all the way through, you know, most recent graduates. What kind of skills do you look for when you're hiring?
I mean, so like for the very, very, very beginning, it's attitude, personality, and hard work. That's really the keys, and then the actual skill part of it comes a little bit after that, because everybody in the business, everybody's going to choose people that they get along with, that works hard. You know, you'll learn more and you'll grow, especially if people are around to help you and lift you up. You know, like if you come on set and you're as a PA, and people see how hard you work and can tell, you know, like they get along with you, you have a good rapport with them, and then something happens where, oh, we need an extra this thing, or we need an extra that. That's how I've seen a lot of people get bumped up. So then they go, oh, what about this person? That's really cool. And they keep saying they love camera and they really wanted to be in the camera department. Well, let's bring them over. They can work with us for the day, you know. And I've seen that happen time and time again, where then all of a sudden they're starting to get more camera stuff, and then they start to get brought into the camera department, or the grips, or the lighting, and that kind of thing. So it's skills important, but also it's just as important as attitude and work ethic. You know, we work really long days and really hard days, especially like PA's position. When you're first getting in, they're kind of like they're there at the very beginning of the day before everybody's there, and they're there at the end of the day when everybody leaves. And so sometimes their days are 16 hours. And then you work the next day, and then the next day, and the next day, you know. So it's really critical, you know, and skill set's important too. We've had some great, you know, Jordan, I think, was in the first class that came, and he was extremely talented. Michael Tanji, another extremely talented guy that came from Jordan's class, and you know, I had a conversation with him at Zippy's when he was my intern, and he was talking about cameras with me, and I go, okay, I'm hiring this guy. And so, you know, Jordan and Michael Tanji worked for me full time for a while. And Michael's in LA doing incredible work. So I had a couple. I mean, I'll take as many questions as you want. I had a couple just like things. Let me just see. I just wanted to show a few things, like, so this is just the set of Doogie Kame Aloha, just kind of during COVID, obviously. Just wanted to show you guys what it kind of looked like. This is what a camera, full build out camera looks like. It's probably, this is a pretty big lens I have on there, but that's probably 70 pounds, just the camera body lens package. Sometimes when I'm wearing my Steadicam can get 60 something pounds. So you have to be, as a camera operator in today's world, you got to be pretty fit and prepared to deal with this kind of stuff. Like Rescue High Surf was all handheld, but my B camera operator was a very petite woman, and she killed it. That's me and my son on a dolly. That's one of the pleasures of this business, is getting to work with family. Here's a So I just want to show you guys, this is Magnum P.I, and that's how we shoot helicopter stuff. So this is a helicopter that's flying somewhere in the world, but we build wind and run the blades, and you know, it looks like they're up in the air flying, but they're really sitting on a platform, a real helicopter. But that's how we shoot it. That's me shooting right there, handheld. This is Rescue High Surf. So this is one of our actresses. She had to launch a jet ski from the ocean onto the sand, and her first attempt, she hit the sand and went flying off. And then this is the second attempt, so I'm kind of running in thinking, first of all, I don't want to get hit by her, and I'm thinking she's gonna like just barely land on the sand, and she ended up going all the way up, so I have to chase her all the way up. So I'll just send that. And that's one of our lead actors, Keikoa, on the back. So this is like a real action-y show, so there's a lot of camera movement. A lot of kind of like lens pops in and out, and everything's real active. Everybody was excited because she killed that launch. Oh, this is another rescue high surf. So this is me on the back of a quad following an actor as he terrorizes the beach with a quad. This is just a Magnum P.I. launch, car launch. This is behind the scenes of a Hawaii 5.0 shootout. So that camera is probably 50 pounds. And they use, back then, that was before that horrible incident that happened on the set where the DP got shot. So they use real gunpowder in the bullet shells, but there's no bullet in it. Back then, they did. And so it was still really loud. That's why I had the earpieces in. Really, really loud. And then after that, I don't think, since that incident, I don't think I've ever shot loads in the shells anymore. Now they just use airsoft guns and everything. But yeah, I don't know. That's I just wanted to show you guys a little bit of that kind of behind the scenes stuff and see the kind of things we get to do. I love what I do. It's very exciting. It's very fun. It's also stressful because you gotta get every shot, like all the shooting stuff. Everybody's relying on you to do your job, but everybody has that type of stress because they all have to do their own jobs. But any other questions or anything or?
This is kind of just like a technical question, but for those like beach shots, how do you deal with just like the harsh shadows, uh, with it being outdoors and stuff? Because you can't really get any lights, especially for like that. Um, or at least I didn't see any lights for like the jet ski one. So yeah, just how do you like deal with the shadows and stuff?
I mean, you can. So there are big budgets, and you can get lighting and grip stuff into these locations when you have a big enough budget. Rescue High Surf, we had a lot to accomplish in a day, and so they made a choice not to bring a lot of that stuff. So we didn't have a lot of light and grip stuff for Rescue High Surf. So yeah, when you saw that stuff, it wasn't lit. So you're trying to, hopefully you get it at a good time of day so that it's a little bit earlier in the day or a little bit later in the day, not in the middle of the day. But a lot of times you don't have a choice because you're run by schedule, and if something gets pushed late, you can't just, unless you're a feature film where they got lots of money, you have to shoot no matter what. Kind of luckily the sand can kick up light too. We use a lot of bounce cards out there. So like if I'm tracking backwards with somebody as they're walking, there'll be somebody right next to me with a bounce card. You try to use the sun as a rim, so the sun would be behind the actor, and then you're bouncing it back in, so that bounce becomes the key or fill a little bit. But like when we're on the towers and in the lifeguard towers, we do bring lights if we have to, or we have these bigger bounces that are 10 by 10 or 8 by 8, and we'll bounce light or bring in. They now have these big LED panels. They're the ones we were using called Airy 360s. There's these huge LED panels, and we usually use 2 of them, and they're on these big inflatable wheels that they can roll on the sand.
So I just want to say, I noticed that sound guy in one of those clips was pretty sharp with your movement.
Oh yeah? Well,
Yeah.
I don't know what
The jet ski one, yeah.
the jet ski one.
Oh, she's coming
that
in
one.
short?
Yeah. Yeah, the sound guy, you know, it's all, again, it's all a big team effort, right? And that person, the boom operator, has one of the hardest jobs on the set because they have to watch all the cameras, and usually there's more than one camera. You got to know what they're shooting. You got to stay out of their shots. You got to not run into the camera operator. You got, and I'm running around. He doesn't know. It's not pre-planned. He doesn't know what I'm doing. So he has to stay out of my shot, but he also has to keep the mic out of my shot, because the last thing you want is the director to sit back at this monitor and go, cut, let's do it again. The boom was in the shot. So it's very, very hard job.
Oh, sorry, one more question. Is it still a big challenge in Hawaii to really find sound people? Because I notice, sometimes a lot of people are more drawn to the camera compared to, the audio. Audio is always kind of the forgotten element. And then sometimes that's when it causes panic, like, oh, is there anybody that can do sound?
Yeah, we have some really good sound technicians. There's not like an overflow of them. It's not like an abundance of them, but we have some really good ones, very, very qualified. Right now, with a little bit of production, there's plenty of sound people, but definitely that's a position that there could be more of, and especially when we start to get more of the episodic and feature work back here. It is one of those positions that not a lot of people tend to go towards, and it's not an easy position either. It's a difficult position and requires a lot of skill, and yeah, there's some great people here though, and there's some good people to learn from. So if you're interested in sound, I could hook you up with them.
Yeah, it's like another multitasking. You're gonna hear like multiple things, and then you got to hear everything that you don't hear, and then you got to hear everything that either the boom or the wafts pick up.
Yeah, and there's a lot of new filters, and AI can do a lot of stuff with filtering background noises out now, so it's a lot easier.
What's your process of deciding how to what works or not, lighting, or does it come naturally, or do you follow any rules for composition?
That's one image I skipped that I wanted to go back to and I forgot. My dad was an artist growing up, and this is one of the paintings that he painted. It's called Two Brothers Fighting. He passed away about almost 30 years ago. So my inspiration, I guess, but I didn't realize it was my inspiration, because I grew up around it, so it just was normal for me. But I grew up around paint all the time, artists. And my father did a lot of stuff with light. And so this is hanging in. This is like an 8-foot painting. It's in my living room right now. But this is two brothers fighting, and the entire painting is lit by this lantern in this guy's hand. And it's kind of a great demonstration of how light works, So there's many different ways to light. I guess everybody has different styles. There's some very specifics that are kind of rules. There's always times you can break rules, but certainly, light and the absence of light, dark, create beautiful images. Are we creating this really nice image by that light, or are we creating this really nice image by these dark parts of the light's not hitting? It's kind of like a little bit of both. It creates shape. Light creates shape. It creates emotion. Different colors of light. You can be happy, create a sense of happiness or a sense of fear, kind of or cold or warm, and So how you light it, where the shadows are they soft shadows? Are they really hard shadows? These are hard shadows. The shadowing is really hard. There's a pretty hard line. It's not this soft fall off. So maybe a romantic comedy is this really soft lighting with really diffused, where the shadows, very, very, not a really hard line. It's very soft. And then maybe a horror film is really, really hard, where it's really sharp, kind of like that, more dramatic-y, sharp, or maybe, the light comes from a lower angle, which is an unusual angle, and, they do that a lot in horror films, where they have a close-up and there's like a light coming from down below. But lighting's great. I love lighting. It's a huge part of what a director of photography does, is they work with their gaffer. The gaffer is the head of the lighting department. The director of photography is the head of the camera department, and they have a vision, and the gaffer is the one that pulls it off.
I wanted to pick your brain, kind of like coming back into like high production on set kind of thing. So could you walk us through leading up to director saying action? How does he communicate what's going on, whether it be through talent or the team itself? How does he communicate like what's happening, and how detailed does he go into the intricacies of the shot and like everything it entails?
Are you talking about in everything, like with the actors and the thing, or are you talking about just between camera and director?
Pretty much everything. Yeah. So like the actors sitting on the side, kind of like, does he fill them in beforehand? What does that kind of look like?
It totally depends on the director, and it totally depends on the actor. Like sometimes actors, you can't really tell them anything because they already know it, but so like it's this dance that director has to play. I mean, sometimes the director is this big time director, and you got to listen to him anyway. So just depends on the dynamic. Typically, like when we would do Hawaii 5-0 or something like that, there's not a whole lot the director says to the actors, because the directors are kind of guest directors. Like the actors are there all season or for multiple seasons. The directors come in for one episode and then leave, and another director comes in for another episode. So it's hard for them to like put their foot down. But you see them come in and they try to make suggestions, or I'd like this to go this way, or I'd like this to go that way a little bit, and like you'll do a rehearsal, and everybody sees the rehearsal, and then you set up all the camera angles, and usually do another rehearsal to check that, and then like the director may step in, and like a rescue high surf, a lot of the directors had a lot of really good input, and you can see the way, and usually they don't do it in front of a whole bunch of people. They may do it there, but they'll do it very quietly, because it's really a moment between them and the actor, and not the whole set. It's not,
And so what about the whole set? So like using the example that you showed us on High Surf, the jet ski scene, how does everybody know where to be, and like how do you go about explaining that part? What did that look like?
So I mean, me as the A camera operator, it's my job. One of my jobs is to make sure that like it's this constant battle, like of clearing an area, so what your shot's going to be. It could be a little bit different because the actor could do something slightly different, but in general you kind of know what your shot is and what it's going to be and what your backgrounds are going to be. And then invariably somebody comes and puts a stand right there or a chair and then sits in it, as soon as you turn your back. And so then you got to turn around and go, hey, this is the line, I need everybody on this side of the line, and this is safe. And that you work with the AD department, which is your assistant director and your PAs. And I'll usually go and tell them, I go, look, okay, so from here, from that tree to that thing, I need everything cleared, and so they'll clear everybody out. But then you still got to keep your eye, because as soon as you roll, I guarantee people are walking in. Like it happens all the time. So that's kind of like a big, unfortunately, it's kind of a big part of the job, just making sure that. But then you also work with that same team to like, it'd be really cool if, this couple was walking right here with a boogie board, and then this, and the AD department sets the whole background of people, and you work with them to make it work for you. Like if something doesn't work and you're like, can you just move them 5 feet over, or do this, or have them come a little bit later, or it's that same thing about working as a team. Like that's part of that process, because you want your shot to be really good, and in order for your shot to be really good, you have to do certain things. You have to have the right location and the right height and the right lens and the right thing, but you also have to have that perfect person walk through, or that perfect this, there's all these little things that help enhance that. Or maybe you want to make sure that there's a tree, like a bush in front, like right at the bottom of the frame, this nice little out of focus little bush in the corner that you want to make sure is there because it adds to that moment, you know, or it could be something else. But you have to talk to like greens department. Can you give me a little bush that's about this high? You know, it's going to be right here. And then they'll go and get it and good. And you set your shot up and you're like, perfect, you know?
So what it sounds like is like the directors individually talking to different groups on the set rather than like having everybody huddled around and kind of like saying, hey, this is the shot that it's going to be. I need everybody, actors, I need you to do this action. And then cameras, I need you to do this. Is it like that or?
So again, it depends on directors. So usually, typically, like I'll use rescue as an example, but like a stunt like that, the AD will call everybody together, go, okay, guys, this is what's happening today. We're going to do this stunt. It's good. It's kind of dangerous, so I'm going to need everybody over here to stay out of the way. We don't want anybody to get hurt, and they kind of lay the whole thing out. They usually lay the whole day out, kind of like ahead of time. But as you get to a big scene or a big action scene, they'll also lay out the safety part of that scene, but right before the scene. Then the director will walk through with the actors and go, okay, so, you know, this is what's going to happen. Maybe you walk over here and you do this, and you walk over here. I want you to walk that way, and you say your line over there, you know. And then usually they'll do a rehearsal of that, and everybody sees it. Sometimes they'll do a private rehearsal, and the director will talk and work it out in the whole. He wants the whole set everybody away from it because he wants to just have his moment with the actors. So he'll have this private rehearsal time, and a lot of times they do that. They'll work out those things. And then they'll call everybody in, and everybody just stands and watches. And me as a camera operator, I usually am kind of at that point trying to find my angle that I want. So I'll walk around and go, okay, so like as I'm watching it, I'll usually find the exact spot that I feel like I want to be on. And then they finish that rehearsal. And then usually we do a camera rehearsal. So we get our cameras all set up and ready to go, and exact lenses and everything that we need. And then they'll do another rehearsal, and we'll check all the shots. And then, you know, and then as far as explaining the shots, like sometimes it's the director and sometimes it's the DP. So it just depends on the set and whatever, but then they'll come over and they'll say, or sometimes they don't, like they just kind of like a lot of times, especially on the bigger like stuff, when you're A and B, you have these certain assignments, and then you have a C camera, and it's not really a specific assignment. So you're just kind of hunting, you know, and you're kind of pitching. You're kind of like, well, you know, you go to the director or the DP, you got to figure out who it is that you're talking to, and you go and you, hey, what about this shot? You know, like, would this work in your piece? And then they'll say either yes or no, you know, and then you find out right away whether you want to tell them again, because if they say no a couple times, then you're done with that, you know. You're either not on the same page or they just don't need it.
Hey Ruben, why did Hawaii lose all of the TV series and movies? You know, on TV now, like Chicago, there's Chicago Fire, Med, PD, and NCIS is Sydney, Hawaii, LA, New Orleans, right? So, like, why are we in a lull now, and how do we get those TV and movies back?
There are probably better people to talk about that than me, but I mean, I will say that you know, part of the issue is you need a crew and support that understands the industry, and so Hawaii over decades has built that crew and support. So we have it now. You know, we've had it for a few decades, but it's here. So like if a big feature comes, we have the people that understand how to do that kind of stuff here and can support it. So now what's happening is, budget-wise, there's a lot of tax incentives and different types of things that locations around the world are doing. So like if you want to, for example, you're going to go to New Zealand, and I don't know the specifics about New Zealand, but I do know it's cheaper to shoot in New Zealand cost-wise. Hawaii's an expensive place to shoot in. So in order for us to compete, we have to be offering things like tax incentives and rebates, like other places. So, you know, Georgia offers all these incentives. Atlanta offers incentives. There's incentives to shoot in Canada. Plus, the dollar goes farther in Canada. It's cheaper. So in order for Hawaii to compete on this global scale in all these markets, we have to offer something that's attractive to these big companies that is keeps it from being cost prohibitive. Hawaii is already more expensive than most places to shoot in. Just the fact of being here. We also have a GE tax, a general excise tax, is another 4% that none of the other states have. So when you go shoot in Georgia and you go shoot in Atlanta or California, you don't have this extra 4% on top of everything else. So like location-wise, here's an example. I think it was Moana. They just recently shot a live-action Moana, and they shot here for maybe 10 days, I think, or a week. All of it was shot in Atlanta on a stage. So here's a Pacific Island show, Moana, that they shot on a stage in Atlanta because it was cheaper than shooting on location in Hawaii. And in order for us to get stuff like that here, we have to offer incentives that bring that type of work here so that it makes it, it's a dollar and cents thing. We also don't have any really big stages here, so that sometimes can impede that kind of stuff. But it all comes down to dollars, and if we can get the ledge to enhance some of the stuff that they have in place right now, I think it'll help a lot. It helps shows like Rescue come and shoot here more, and we all need it.
Alrighty, I think we'll wrap this up. I'd like to thank Ruben and thank all of you for supporting our speaker series. Just to mention once again, Ruben has been a strong supporter of our program and has really done a great job at recruiting some of our students or graduates. So please take a moment to say hello to him and connect. And if you have any other questions, please go ahead and talk to him.